and control is about handling real estate. And Caleb Plant started very well. Uh, I told you also that to restrict your opponent, you not only can you vary range to control your opponent and how your opponent performs, but also you can do certain things with the lead hand to control your opponent. I'm going to talk a little bit about this fight. This fight was a fight of two halves, right? Caleb Plant, basically in the first half, was able to restrict David Benavidez, control David Benavidez to some degree. And you may ask yourself, well, what happened? How did the fight fall apart for Caleb Plant? So I'll go into that. One of the things you got to realize, and I said it in the last video, was that punching and clinching. I told y'all that's not, if that's what you think is going to take you through a fight, um, that don't work. All right, there's many ways to lower your opponent's to restrict their offense. Okay. All right. So let me go into this. Now I realized that Caleb Plant didn't do a lot of body checks. He didn't do a lot of he didn't use the lead hand to control his opponent's offense. All right. And the reason he abandoned the jab after a certain point in time was because David Benavidez started to throw his jab and land his jab, in addition to not just throwing his jab, but also alternating between his jab and his right hand as a lead. Like I said before, the lead hand is important when you want to control your opponent, and it doesn't have to be a jab. And David Benavidez would switch from jabbing to sometimes throwing the right hand as the lead. Now, here's the thing. David Benavidez was trying to find range. Caleb Plant was staying, just keeping him off balance, was out of range, was doing great things defensively. I mean, uh, David Benavidez couldn't tag Caleb Plant early on in the fight. I'm gonna tell you why. There are two major things, and this was a concern of mine. There are two major things that Caleb Plant still lacks in his game. One of them is he doesn't stay as relaxed as he should be. So he's not. And I heard Stephen Bredman telling Caleb Plant, "You need to relax, take your time." The other thing is Caleb abandoned controlling range and gave that over to David Benavidez. And the reason that happened and why David Benavidez could get his hands off a lot more was two things. One, David Benavidez was cutting off the ring, and yes, he was using his angles like I said he would. And the second thing he was doing was he sort of baited Caleb Plant into a false confidence that Caleb Plant could mix it up with him. So Caleb Plant was trying to box him. When Caleb Plant thought that, Benavidez was sort of easy work for him, he started to engage Benavidez. And this is a typical thing I've seen, I mean, throughout the history of boxing, throughout time. Caleb Plant felt he could kind of sit down on his punches and start to go toe to toe with David Benavidez. The other thing that Caleb Plant did that was wrong was he was trying to punch and grab. Some of the earlier rounds, I think it was round 4 or 5, Caleb Plant has David Benavidez in the ropes. He double jabs him and then he opens him up and throws the right hand. And then he slides in to try and clinch. That was just wrong. And throughout the fight, David Benavidez was doing his best work when he was in the clinch, when Caleb Plant was trying to clinch him. And the thing with Caleb Plant is Caleb Plant still doesn't know the varying ways to clinch an opponent to lock him down so that you're not directly in front of them. Like he's directly in front of David Benavidez when it's happening. Even when he's engaging that David Benavidez, sitting down on his punches and stuff and fighting him, while they are pivoting in that small space in the center of the ring, which favors David Benavidez because yes, David Benavidez is flat-footed. Yes, David Benavidez, sits down on his punches and stuff like that. But the thing about David Benavidez is he can pivot, sharp pivots. And so Caleb was trying to work around David Benavidez, go around him, but it wasn't working. David Benavidez actually had the better combinations in close. And even in the clinch, particularly, David Benavidez had the chopping shots, sometimes elbowing Caleb Plant in his head and stuff like that. That's why he got the cut over his head. It wasn't from a headbutt, it was from an elbow. David Benavidez, I saw it also with Ryan Garcia. Ryan Garcia has the sharp punches. The other thing with David Benavidez, it's kind of like Felix Trinidad. He keeps his hands close together like this. I can't show you because I'm holding the phone with the other hand. But he keeps his hands close together. So when you try to clinch or lock up on him, especially if you don't know how to clinch properly to deal with that, how you get a guy into a clinch and all of that. Caleb Plant sometimes punch and then try and dive in and clinch. And you can't clinch a guy who, let me see, I need to have like a prop or something to do this. Hold on a second. Let me see. Maybe I could be able to do it. Maybe. I said maybe. I'm not saying I will. Okay. When a guy's doing this, when you try to lock up and clinch him, he can just push his elbows out and push you off the clinch and push you off the clinch like this, right? So what was happening is David Benavidez, like Felix Trinidad, he would just close up here. Oh, I gotta admit, David Benavidez got good defense. You know, he tightens up, he picks punches off here. You know, even though he's squared up sometimes, he's able to pick off punches. Caleb Plant didn't really land a whole bunch of effective punches on David Benavidez. He caught him with a jab or two that was effective and snapped his head back and stuff. But for the most part, David Benavidez kept his defense pretty tight, I gotta say. Even though I thought Caleb Plant has a better defense than well, he has more variety in his defense. Let me say that. Sometimes Caleb moves too excessively, trying to show his defense. Again, I feel like Caleb Plant starts fights where he starts fights with a lot of energy and stuff. He starts with a lot of tempo, and then he slows down later on in the fights. Even though you got to give David Benavidez credit for, again, in the clinch, and this is something that happened with even Canelo. Canelo would lock him up in a clinch and land the spleen shots. David Benavidez was roughing him up on top, using his weight and punching him and landing combinations in close. In close. Caleb's most effective, he was most effective from range when he was on the outside, even when he's pushing David Benavidez back. Now, to Caleb Plant's credit, he took a lot of David Benavidez punches. In round 8, David Benavidez was really beating him up significantly. He took some damage in round 8. And in round 11, again, David Benavidez had a little run there in round 11 where he landed a number of combinations on Caleb Plant. Now, notice, however, David Benavidez and Caleb Plant weren't really able to run their normal combinations on each other because of their defense and stuff. Caleb Plant rallied in the 12th. He really put on a great show and a great effort in the 12th round. He was really trying to stalk David Benavidez, trying to, beat him down, beat him back. But even though there were no knockdowns in this fight, and the second half of the fight was much more emphatic. I would say that throughout the fight, nobody really seriously got hurt. I mean, Caleb Plant had some bruises on his face and stuff, but that's not from the cut that he has on his face was not from a punch. It's from he thinks it's a headbutt, but it's really from an elbow. Okay. But basically those two guys, they went at each other hard. David Benavidez finally got the range he wanted with Caleb Plant. And there are two things he did to make that happen. One of them was he was leading with either hand, and he was finding the range that way. He has a nice long jab. He was able to knock Caleb Plant back a couple of times, snap his head back a couple of times. But it was a nice long jab and a nice now lead right to the body. He was going to the body with nice clean shots, keeping his defense tight, and he was walking down Caleb Plant. And Caleb Plant was kind of being very flashy at certain points, and he's showing how good his defense was. But unfortunately for Caleb Plant, two things. He wasn't pacing himself properly, and two, he kept on trying to clinch. And it just didn't work. The clinch didn't work for him. The clinch worked against him. David Benavidez was able to make Plant work in a clinch. So Plant was consuming a lot of energy trying to clinch David Benavidez, who was not allowing him to clinch and was working through the clinch. He reminded me of Marcos Maidana, who would do something like that. Tito Trinidad would make you work in a clinch. Povetkin would make you work in a clinch. These guys make you work in a clinch. So David Benavidez, he didn't really fully use his size. He was mostly punching Caleb Plant in the clinch. He would make it as comfortable as possible so Caleb Plant would think. And I was trying to explain to people, punch and grab don't work for It just don't work for certain people. They will not allow you to punch and grab. Okay, and in the case of Caleb Plant, he tried it once, but from the very beginning, it wasn't working. For him. As I said before. Now the only problem with Caleb Plant was he was trying to he was kind of pushing out his jab like this. I'm a southpaw. He just pushing out his jab like this, just pouring it out there. You don't do that. If you're gonna use the lead hand, you either blind this dude with your jab, so you blind him, or what you got to do with that jab is you got to touch his lead hand and keep his lead hand at home. He wasn't doing that. He was just pouring with the jab like this, as if he was gauging him. He was gauging him, and that's not enough. Okay, it's just not enough, right? So David Benavidez, now Caleb Blatt's footwork was great once he had the energy to move around the ring. So what happened with Caleb Plant was two things. One, he seemed overconfident at a certain point in time with handling David Benavidez because it showed how elusive his defense and everything was, how easy David Benavidez was to handle. But what he was forgetting, two things: he was moving, he was not conserving his energy enough, and then the next thing he was trying to do was clinch. Why were you trying to? And he only had one kind of clinch. And when David Benavidez closed range and closed distance, because he was using the lead right hand, was using the lead left hand to get close distance, close range. Caleb Plant started engaging. Of course, David Benavidez was stealing shots to the body. He wasn't doing as much body work as I usually see him because again, Caleb Plant was controlling the range. He was too far away for David Benavidez to land body shots. But as soon as Caleb Plant got too comfortable and started settling down, and when he realized he couldn't clinch David Benavidez and stop the action, this is where it really David Benavidez actually changed this fight in a clinch, in my opinion. That's where he started to change the fight. Caleb was still fighting him, but Caleb wasn't fighting him no longer from long range. Caleb wasn't circling the ring, wasn't doing none of that anymore. He sat down and he started trading with David Benavidez. And at certain points in time, he was as flat-footed as David Benavidez, and he was fighting him directly in front of him, which is something I told y'all he should never do. Like, you can fight a guy toe-to-toe, but you don't have to stand directly in front of him. You know what I'm saying? Another thing he does, Caleb Plant does, and I can tell he's something he rehearsed, he dips to his right. And David Benavidez just kept on landing those left hooks on his, as Caleb would dip in, he would dip into the left hook, something that Canelo did to him, but with the right hand, right uppercut, as Caleb was dipping to his right. So Caleb never saw it, but Caleb saw these. I knew Caleb was a tough guy. I knew Caleb, he'll fight if he has to fight. He ended up fighting in this fight where, at points, what he should have done was control David Benavidez with the lead hand, with his jab. He has a really good jab. He abandoned his jab and he started fighting with David Benavidez. And again, the reason he abandoned his jab is because David Benavidez started establishing his jab as well as his lead right hand and was landing it as Caleb Plant was landing his jab. So Caleb Plant started stopped using his jab. And on top of that, the jab that Caleb Plant used is for a gauge. He pulled with the jab, like I said before. And while that's cool and that's a gauge and everything, you really want to you don't want to just use your jab for no reason, right? I get it. You were trying to get distance. But sometimes you need to use the jab to keep his hand at home. Literally, you take your jabbing hand, and before David could pop his jab, you put your hand on his hand. You put it right here. You're touching it. And maybe you jab over it. Slap it down, jab over it, right? Keep his hand at home. You know, and you know he will try and respond with a jab. So you then, as you slap a jab over it, you come back here and you touch it again. And you keep his hand at home. You know, and that's things that I was looking to see if, Caleb would do something like that. He didn't do nothing like that. So that's something in this game you need to know. You need to understand what control is. And you have to be able to control your opponent. And you have to learn how to suddenly not be in front of your opponent all the time. Caleb does a couple of things that are really cool. He has nice little pivots and stuff. But, if you don't understand the purpose of why you pivot and when you pivot, because you can't be a step ahead of your opponent. And what happened was David Benavidez was gathering all this data, watching how Caleb Plant was moving, and Caleb Plant was showing him everything. He didn't leave nothing to chance. So when Caleb Plant had shown him everything, there was nothing to adapt or adjust to. David Benavidez started proceeding with, and David Benavidez realized, This guy want to clinch. I'm gonna handle him for that. I'm gonna make sure he don't clinch like that. And then two, David Benavidez was trying to find that range and he's trying to find Caleb Plant's timing. He got both, and that's why he was able to crash him like he was crashing. Okay, and kept his defense pretty tight. Caleb was still firing back and everything. It was trade off. It was a competitive fight. It was a relatively close fight, but the unanimous decision is the correct one. But at the end of the day, you got much more educated feet than David Benavidez' feet, and you still let this guy beat you. I mean, come on now. I just gotta say it. You know, Caleb Plant, skill wise, David Benavidez don't even belong in the ring with Caleb Plant, skill wise. But again, once you have a good game plan, their game plan was to wear Caleb Plant down, break him down to the body. They didn't really quite do that. He had his opportunities in the clinch, and that's where he did most of his work to break down Caleb Plant. And but Caleb Plant fought to the end like a brave soldier. He came back in the 12th, and he controlled that. That was his round. He took the 12th round. But even so, too little, too late. You know, David Benavidez had a huge 8th round. He had a huge 11th round. You could argue he did his thing in the 12th as well, in the 10th, in the 9th. You know, he was still running off that momentum. So David Benavidez got took off in the latter half of the fight, and really emphatically showed that he was the guy. You know, it wasn't just so. I mean, it was a close-ish fight. I mean, but I can understand why the judges gave it to David Benavidez. I have nothing against what happened. Fight was kind of tit for tat at certain points, but Caleb wasn't getting off enough shots that actually landed and were really effective shots against David Benavidez. He controlled the first half of the fight, but remember, even though he did control the first half of the fight, I would say that I wasn't particularly, he didn't particularly do anything to damage David Benavidez. He didn't do any, he was effective in what he was doing, so you give him maybe rounds 1 to 5, you give him all those rounds. But David Benavidez, in the meantime, is gathering his data, you know, and testing out what he could touch Caleb Plant with, what he couldn't touch Caleb Plant with. You know what I'm saying? And then he started to apply his thing, and he realized the weakness was Caleb Plant keep on unnecessarily sometimes coming in for the clinch, right? Coming in for the clinch. Now Kenny Bayless there, Kenny Bayless, you just separate them. He wouldn't warn or anything. But Caleb Plant was unnecessarily at certain points in time where he had the upper hand and everything. He just slide in and try and clinch David Benavidez. I'm like, and the clinching wasn't working because David Benavidez had his hands up like this. So when you slide in to come to the guy, he just put his hands down like that, and all of a sudden you're struggling to clinch, and he starts landing his hooks up and under. You know what I'm saying? He starts ripping up and over, under. You know what I'm saying? You know, forearming you off and boom, boom. You know what I'm saying? I saw Caleb Plant doing some beautiful stuff with. I saw Caleb Plant doing some beautiful stuff where he bumped him with the shoulder and come over with the right hand, but not enough. You know, David Benavidez, he more used to fighting on the inside. He more used to fighting at mid-range. You know what I'm saying? That wasn't really Caleb Plant's forte. Caleb Plant can do a little bit of that, but he don't keep. He also, another thing that Caleb Plant don't do, he don't keep that confirmation. If you're gonna be in the shell, you're gonna be in the shell. If you're gonna square up and start a fight, you're gonna square up and start a fight. But you can't do both. You're caught in no man's land. And the same thing that happened to Devin Haney was what will happen with Caleb Plant. You know what I'm saying? So it was, it was a lot of little things I noticed. As Shakur Stevenson said so correctly, Caleb has to work on his inside game a little bit more. You know, Andrew Ward was really good at that. You clinch a guy with one hand, okay, and you work his body with the next. You know, or you tie him up on this side, but you got to tie him up. You got to incapacitate him so he can't fire back. And that's something Caleb he don't know exactly how to do that yet. Right? He know how to get in position, but he don't know how to, so what happens is Caleb would land he would land that right hand, and David Benavidez would come right behind that with a left hook, right after it. Boom, boom. So boom, boom, right? And so Caleb would keep on getting, David Benavidez keep on winning those exchanges. Whereas you don't just come with the right hand. What do? You control him with the lead hand first. You control him with the lead hand. You keep that left hand at home, and then you come over the top of the right hand. You see what I'm saying? You got to control him first, and that's the problem. That, and you got to be in a position where he can't fire back, and that's the kind of things that Caleb still, you know, he gotta develop his game a little bit more when it comes to those things. And like I said before, you can't just be going in there. Excuse me. You can't just be going in there trying to, you know, uh, punch and clinch, right? They say that they say you punch and clinch, but it don't. And the other thing is, you got to learn how to clinch. There's several different ways to clinch. There's several different ways to tie up, and all I saw was one way, and it wasn't the most effective way that Caleb was doing. And I think he got the cut over his eye because he ran into Benavidez' elbow. I think he cut his own eye by running into David Benavidez' elbow as he's trying to clinch him. You know what I mean? And so your head's all back this way. He's, so that didn't work. The other guy I saw try to do that, it was Adrian Broner against Sean Porter. Okay? And Sean Porter whooped his ass. But Adrian Broner knew how to luck up. He knows how to luck up a fighter. These are some of the things Caleb Plant still have to learn in his game. He got a nice jab. I wish he had stayed with the jab on the outside. And Benavidez was to keep on stealing shots and use your footwork. And so you make David Benavidez have to come to your body. Keep on trying to land on your body shots. So I wish he had stayed on the outside instead of trying to fall in and clinch. And he was doing it from round one. He was trying to do this. He wasn't succeeding. Why were you trying to do something that you wasn't succeeding at doing? I don't get it. He was adamant about clinching. He wasn't that adamant about jabbing. I didn't get it. But sometimes that's what goes through your head as you're getting punched or whatever. I don't know. But Caleb Plant still fought like a warrior. I think, he still has some work to do on inside fighting. And there's a lot that goes on with inside fighting. Inside fighting is a science in itself. But I got to give props to David Benavidez because David Benavidez is able to goad him into, well, not necessarily goad him in, but kind of goad him into thinking, giving him that false confidence that he can handle everything in the fight. And then David Benavidez started showing his adjustments and his adaptation. Caleb should have, if you're going to fight a guy on the inside, which that's not necessarily your forte, and yes, he goaded you in by saying, oh, you were going to run, you was going to run, so you decided, oh, I'm going to run. I'm not going to run, I'm going to fight him. But the problem with that is that you're playing into his forte. You're trying to outdo him at what he does best. So, yes, of course, in boxing, you got to sit down and throw down at certain points. But in my opinion, Caleb threw the fight in the sense that he did not pick the right time to throw down. And the other thing is, if the clinching ain't working, don't do it. Just don't do it. And that wasn't working for him. Cause why do people clinch? One, to reset your opponent. And two, you do it to get a rest. That's why you're clinching up the guy. And Caleb wasn't getting any rest at all. So, I'm just saying, he got to work on the clinch game. And two, you got to work on controlling your opponent without clinching. There, not just punch and clinch. Right? Some guys will not let you clinch. Marcos Maidana was one of them guys. He wasn't going to let nobody clinch him. All right, Marcos Maidana, like I said, Povetkin don't make nobody. You come in trying to clinch, he'll knock you out. Povetkin knocked out the Cuban kid. I can't remember what his name is. He's trying to clinch him. I ain't calling him. Boom, knocked him out. All right, some guys, and they got short chopping shots. Some guys, man, they ain't gonna let you clinch. And so, and I talked about this because I thought this was something very important. You control the real estate, and you control your opponent's offense. Take away their offense, right? And you take it away using the lead hand. It could be this hand or it could be this hand. Now, I know David Benavidez was using either hand. he was leading off with either hand. But he's in the orthodox stance, so if he square up, you should be going to the body. Caleb was trying. Early on. He was going to the body, nice jabs to the body. Of course, Benavidez had the longer hands, but he's still sneaking in that jab to the body. Sometimes Benavidez catch him. And the other thing is that you want to feint a jab to the body, right? And then come up top with a shot. And again, Caleb was doing some of that early on, but then he stopped doing all of those things because, one, he burned up a lot of his energy doing all those fancy movements to get out of the way of shots, whereas David Benavidez was conserving his energy by just blocking the shots, keeping himself airtight. So it's how efficient you are also. It's not just burning a whole set of energy trying to be looking sweet and showing this guy that you can't touch me, because he might touch you later on. So I think that the game plan was a good game plan. They had a good game plan. Benavidez, they had a great game plan. They thought they were going to give him pressure, smart pressure, and wait for him to slow down, as he almost does almost every fight. He slows down at a certain point, and then take it to him. But in this case, Caleb was in great condition. So even when Benavidez was trying to take it to him, he couldn't really take it to him all the time. He couldn't take it to him consistently. So Benavidez had to take what he could take in spots, because Caleb was still difficult. He was still elusive. He was still coming back with some really good shots. J Home has HD. What's up, brother? He was still coming back with some good shots, man. Who you got, Benavidez or Canelo? Oh, all day I got Canelo. All day I got Canelo. That's a good fight, though. That's a good fight. But J O M says, I thought Caleb won 7-5. Nah, he didn't win 7-5. Nah. Now Caleb lost that fight. It was a close fight. If you say 7-5 Benavidez, I prefer that, because Benavidez started really being effective, I think, about round 7. Yes, I agree. The first 6 rounds, I thought Caleb won the first 6 rounds, but Benavidez was coming and he was landing more shots on Caleb. I thought Benavidez was the one that actually did something to Caleb. Now, I'm not saying that Caleb really got beaten up or anything like that. They're saying Caleb got beaten up. I didn't really see that. Yeah, Caleb got crashed in round 8. He got crashed in round 8. And Benavidez had a really great moment in round 11. But I never really saw Caleb looking like he was going to get knocked out or anything like that. It didn't look like that. So, but Benavidez was a more persuasive guy in the fight. I got to say that. Benavidez looked like he was winning the fight. Even though I don't think Benavidez won the 12th round. I think Benavidez may have won one of the earlier rounds. One of them, between round 1 to 6, one of them, he won one of those. He had an emphatic round 8. He had a really tremendous round 8. And round 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, I thought he took all those. I was not impressed with Benavidez. He looked pedestrian and tentative. He was mostly tentative. He wasn't throwing a whole lot. In that entire fight, Benavidez didn't throw that much shots because, again, Caleb Plant wasn't giving him the range to really throw the shots. And then, again, Benavidez was looking out for Caleb's left hook, because Caleb was throwing that left hook like he really meant something. So he was trying to catch Benavidez with the left hook. But Benavidez was actually fighting smart. He was keeping the range that he wanted, so that he could do what he wanted to do. And he had a great 8 round. The 11 round, a certain spot in the 11 round was just tremendous. And we knew that round went to him. Caleb came back, and you could argue Caleb took the 12th. Caleb took the majority of the first 6 rounds. He didn't take all 6 because some of them was swing. So you could have given it to Benavidez, you could give it to Caleb Plant. Lewis Clark said, unfortunately for Plant, his main method of controlling space is with his jab. And once you get past that, he's very hittable. Right. So Well, no, not really. He rolls and rides punches and stuff like that. So he has defense, but I feel like he burns too much energy up sometimes using his defense. Like he would make too much movement. Like with Benavidez was throwing a whole set of combinations and how he was riding and rolling those punches. The problem with it is sometimes he dipped to his right and he's predictable in dipping to his right. So a guy would time him, like Benavidez started timing him as he was dipping to his right and catch him with he would catch him with the left hook time and time again. Caleb Plant would just literally run into Benavidez' left hook. And Benavidez started finding range on his head. Now Benavidez was going head happy and head hunting. He should have gone more to the body. Probably would have broken him down some more. But all in all, Benavidez did a great job. You know, and you know, you know, you got to give Benavidez his props, man. This was a fight. He stepped up to the challenge. He never faced anybody like Caleb Plant, and he passed with flying colors, man. He passed with flying. A unanimous decision, 7-5, 8-4. David Benavidez. Not no 7-5, 7-5, 7-5, not 8-4. This fight was close. 7-5, or even if it's not 7-5, you could give him round eight was a tremendous round. Now, Caleb Plant didn't look like he was going anywhere. He didn't look like he was going to get knocked out or anything. But the combination that David Benavidez landed on him, so much punches. He was throwing. He couldn't miss for a certain point in time. He was catching Caleb flush with every single punch. Again, though, we realized David Benavidez is not a dude who got one hitter quitter power. He's a big dude. He puts his punches together, but he's not a one hitter quitter guy. Or at least, as much as he is flat-footed and uses his feet for leverage, he's not necessarily a guy that hit that hard because he's basically just a cruiserweight to heavyweight going into the ring versus a guy who's a light heavyweight, right? And if Benavidez was a guy, like they say, the Mexican monster who was stopping everybody, he'd have stopped Caleb Plant, right? Now, there were some things he could have done to stop Caleb Plant if he had invested more into the body. If he could have gotten to Caleb Plant's body earlier, that wasn't possible. But Lewis Clark says, yeah, I agree. He can roll and slip inside, but he's still taking punches in these. Yeah, especially when he dipped to his right. But the thing about it is, if you look at it, Caleb Plant was mostly getting punched and hit when he tried to clinch. It wasn't necessarily when he was actually fighting. Even though he did get caught with a couple of shots when he was actually fighting, it's mostly when he's trying to clinch. That's when he's getting punched up by Benavidez. Not to say that, let's not take it away from Benavidez. He was doing some beautiful stuff in there, from long range. He was catching with that nice long jab every now and then. He was catching with that right to the body. He was investing to the body, but using the lead right, Lewis Clark says, do you think Plant has improved? Oh, yeah. He's improved, of course. Yeah, he's improved some. But some of the problems he has had throughout his career, he still has them. He still starts too fast. And it's kind of wound up and tight. And he starts very quickly. He still doesn't, he has good jabs. He has good selection of jabs sometimes. But he doesn't really control his opponent. He doesn't try to take away their offense, not only through his footwork and staying far away, but also through using the lead hand to control him. Whether you're on the inside or not, use the lead hand to control him. Like I said before, the lead hand is not necessarily the jab. Your jabbing hand, yes, but you could collapse your lead hand, for example, use it as a forearm and control your opponent so your opponent can't turn into you and stuff like that. And he's not doing that. You could body check with the lead hand, right? You could body check a guy. You can kind of throw him off balance or make him stay in a position, freeze him sort of like while you pivot into position. And I don't see all these subtle things that he don't do that. He just don't do them things with his lead hand. And so as a result of that, that's why David Benavidez is able to respond. So if he throws a lead right on the inside, David Benavidez come back with a left hook, hit him flush because he not controlling David Benavidez offense before launching his offense. And these kinds of things, these subtle things, I miss, are missing from Caleb Plant's game. You got to control the guy first before you, and it's not just control through real estate or just through a jab, And I was talking about that before this fight even came about. I thought he had these things. Lewis Clark says, I agree. Control is very important. Yeah, I mean, that's how you win a fight. You control your opponent. I mean, for the early part of the fight, he was controlling him. David Benavidez wasn't throwing much of anything because he couldn't catch up to Caleb Plant, and also because he now don't get me wrong, David Benavidez was using feints. Caleb Plant was using some feints as well. So Caleb Plant wouldn't know exactly when he was going to attack him, but even so, you know, how you deal with how you going to control your opponent's output cannot just be by how far away you are from your opponent, which is all Caleb Plant was really counting on to keep his defense on point. He's far away enough that he can see the punches coming. But you got to have more than that. You gotta be able to take your lead hand now and make sure that he don't throw off nothing, or make sure you in a position, or you freeze him. You kind of freeze him up so he's not in a position where he can hit you, whereas you're in a position to hit him. And I didn't see much of that. I didn't see him being defensively responsible in certain places, and he has the ability to dip under punches and all of that, and even roll out from underneath Benavidez. But I still don't see that consistently. He was doing it in spots, but he wasn't doing it consistently. He would roll underneath David Benavidez' left hook and then spin out behind him and then clinch him. Now that's a smart move. And I saw him do it like once or twice in the fight. Devin Haney was doing it consistently to George Kambosos, but he wasn't doing it consistently with David Benavidez. So it's all these things I'm saying. Like he had it in pieces, but he couldn't put it together. Lewis Clark says, if you look at most of the top fighters, they are also crossing the line and controlling with the rear hand too. Looks like he was trying to improve his power, but as you said, he's using so much energy. Yeah, he's using too much energy. No, that's what I'm talking about. The lead hand doesn't necessarily have to be the jabbing hand. Right? So I'm going to demonstrate again. So David Benavidez, that's what he was doing. David Benavidez was so David Benavidez. Okay, no, I'm sorry. So this is the jabbing hand, right? So David Benavidez, he would throw that nice straight jab, right? But at times, David Benavidez, he would shift his body a little bit and throw his lead hand as a right hand. He might feint like if he going to throw the jab up top and then come with a right to the body. See? So I thought that was brilliant on David Benavidez's part, and that's how he was stealing some shots to Caleb Plant's solar plexus and stuff like that, and slowing him down bits and pieces. And then he really got. I mean, Caleb Plant gave him a gift in that Caleb Plant kept on. He kept on trying to clinch him for no reason at all. Sometimes he tried to clinch him, man. And David Benavidez would take advantage of that situation because he would prepare. You can't just straight up clinch David Benavidez. If you're going to clinch David Benavidez, you got to clinch him while he's throwing. You got to slip. You got to slip the shot or, pivot under the shot like Caleb was doing. So after David Benavidez throws, now he's not in his guard. Now you can wrap him up. And you need to wrap him up and lock him up so he can't even throw nothing. But Caleb don't do that. He just throw his punch and then he fall in. You can't just be doing that. So yeah, that's what I got for you guys. In a way, David Benavidez showed me that he could capitalize on the errors and mistakes of Caleb Plant, and it worked in his favor that Caleb did slow down. He was able to wear Caleb Plant down. He was able to get Caleb Plant to fight in the range he wanted to fight him in. He caught, as they say, he caught up to him. He applied pressure, smart pressure. Caleb Plant caught up to him. Mind you, Caleb Plant was pushing him back for a couple of rounds. Pushed David Benavidez back, had David Benavidez on the ropes, but he wasn't really doing much with him once he got pushing back. It's like Caleb Plant needs somebody to like fight going backwards or in the center of the ring. Um, Caleb also could have kept the fight a little bit more in the center of the ring. It was in the center of the ring later on in the fight, but I'm just saying. Um, he did try to pivot around David Benavidez, but David Benavidez, like I said before, he pivots very well. So he may have flat feet, but when it comes to just turning, he could turn, right? And so that infighting, that like James Tony, when you fight on the inside, you don't have to step around, you don't have to do a whole set of movement. So as a result, it's just pivot work, and David Benavidez actually is pretty good at that. So and you rough him up on the inside there. So Caleb should have, where Caleb realized that wasn't working, he should have used his jab to space him back out, and he should have fought him on the outside and try and push him back on the outside every now and then. But he should have stuck to being on the outside and stopped clinching. He should have immediately realized the clinching wasn't working because Caleb was counting on the clinching to obviously get his wind back, to get his breath back, and that didn't work. So now he had to just straight up fight. So that's what's up. I'm gonna catch you guys later on what you need. I just thought I want to break that down. There's some other fights that was out there. Chris Colbert versus Valenzuela, Jose Valenzuela, who is the teammate of David Benavidez, the not gym mate, whatever you call it. And you also had Joey Spencer versus Jose. Forgot what his surname is. Anyway, um, Colbert got the win. I don't know, man. He lived to see another day. That's what I'll say about that. And that guy was just too strong for Joey. I mean, Joey didn't. There were things Joey could have done differently, but in the heat of battle and getting hurt so early in the fight, it was tough. It was tough. It was a tough ask. Lewis Clark says, "Have a good day." You too, my brother. You too, my brother. Don't forget that you can also check this channel out if you want to donate by PayPal just to support it. You can do so or spread the word onwards. Boxing is a beautiful sport. I'll tell you guys that any day of the week. I'm glad to see you guys have the passion for it. I'm gonna catch you guys later though. What you need? Great card, great night. You guys have a good one though. Peace.